obviously it's very important then, instead of just giving them housing which they will never own, to actually encourage them to own their own houses so that they get property and to offer the opportunities in which they can thrive rather than to just give them a crutch to lean on. In the answer it was clear that yes, it is true that it should be not only benefits. I mean, there should be support for those who need it, but there clearly should be much more opportunities, because a lot of these people want to, a lot of the people who come to our societies want to contribute, and they have a lot to bring. A very important hindrance there is the fact that foreign diplomas and qualifications are not recognized sufficiently, which means you get very highly educated people who have to go for very menial jobs and who are limited in the way they can contribute to society because a piece of paper is not recognized for what it is, basically. Also on the question of, well, how are you going to pay for this? The answer was that, well, it is not more expensive. It's actually what we have to do, and we should stop looking at migrants as the problem now, and then that immigration is going to be a solution for our aging population and our population outlook later. They are the answer already now, and we should act on that now, seeing them as part of the solution rather than as part of the problem. So that was basically what came out of that first discussion. The second discussion, which was about the more broader field of the social rights and the integration, it was remarked that it was symbolic that today, which was yesterday, when we were discussing here on this topic, was also the day when the Portuguese government was voting its budget. And that reminds us that actually, yes, we do have targets, but it's very, very clear that when it comes to the financial obligations, the economic obligations which member states have undertaken, those are scrutinized very, very strongly by Europe. And they're not soft law, they're hard law, because if a state doesn't obey, Europe will punish, and actually the markets will punish it quite badly immediately. So there, member states know that, well, we have a target, and it is a serious target which we need to reach. It is quite a contradiction to the fact that also for social policies we have targets, but there are no visible sanctions there. There is not the same focus on that for poverty reduction. And whereas there was an extremely rapid response in the economic crisis, it's much less quick as a real priority rather than as a byproduct to do this also for combating poverty. One of the things we see across Europe also is that due to the cuts, and it was mentioned before, there is a pressure on, of course, the social systems, but the pressure is not all necessarily bad, because there is a need to refocus the limited resources we have. In most of the European states, the social system is actually kept up, so the system is not necessarily taken down. The interpretation of who can benefit from the system is more strict and more stringent, and we have to see what is going to be the long-term impact of excluding more people from the social security system as we have it now, because more families will be affected by that. But there is a difference if these are short-term measures or they would be long-term measures. They would have a much more bigger impact. Now, the 2020 strategy sets a clear target of reducing by 20 million, which is very, very important. But as was said also in the previous discussions, that doesn't mean we should just accept 16 million others, which we leave behind, below the poverty line. But it is important that for the first time member states do agree on a hard target that they want to reach. Now, can we also reach it? That's again the question of what are the sanctions if we don't? And how motivated are member states in difficult decisions if there are no hard sanctions to actually reach the targets they set out? It was also clear that whereas the financial and economic crisis is seen as a multi-level governance problem. It's also seen as a European problem. When it comes to combating poverty, it feels much more like this is up to the member states to solve it, rather than that there is a coherent European strategy in going forward, which then closes on to national strategies which follow from it. So that red line is missing. The crisis, it was said, has in Chinese two types of characters. One which is a danger and the other one which is an opportunity. When it comes to social exclusion and combating poverty, we do see the dangerous side from this crisis, but we haven't really seized on the opportunities to not only reform but also look differently at the way we organize and govern Europe and our own countries. We did it for finances, as said before, but we haven't done it for social policy. But it is now, the crisis is an opportunity to talk about concepts which were difficult, such as the European minimum income is something we should be debating right now. We should now have a clear path towards combating poverty and consolidate it rather than attacking the social security systems because of the crisis. And so in this sense, the crisis has shown the weakness of a Europe which has no real social strategy until now. I think that were the main things which were said in the discussion, and the Europe 2020 strategy, the worst thing which could happen would be that we would get more of the same rather than making real progress, because more of the same is not enough. I think that were the main things being discussed.
Thank you very much, Ulrich, for that report of this very afternoon's